What's up, Spice Warriors? It's DuneBro, and today we're going to be going over everything you need to know to get started with House Ecaz, the newest faction for Dune Spice Wars, which just released into 1.0 launch on Steam. I've been playing Dune for just about over a year and a half since its original beta release on Steam, and there's been a lot that's changed over the development cycle, not to mention even in the last 6 months. So we're going to be going through everything you need to know about House Ecaz, all the faction bonuses, talking about the sanctuaries and the gardens, as well as going through the entire tech tree since it has been changed significantly, going through the different developments that you can get as the Ecaz, and just a few tips and tricks for playing the faction. So hope you enjoyed this beginner's guide, and if you do, consider subscribing to the channel for more Dune content, which is all I'm going to be uploading here. So the first thing we're going to talk about, let's just go through the basic faction bonuses. Okay, so if you surround neutral villages, they then become a sanctuary that cannot be attacked by other factions. And I'll explain how this works. You gain +1 authority per each sanctuary that you hold, so you can get many of these. You can get more authority coming in for each sanctuary. And probably the biggest reason for having a sanctuary, villages adjacent to a sanctuary gain +1 instance of the village's traits. So what that means is, if we look at this village right here, for example, it has +20% economy buildings resource production. So if I turn this into a sanctuary, that's going to get a multiplier, as well as the resource for pillaging villages, etc., etc. Incoming raiders, of course, always when we're making guides. So I'm actually going to do this right now. I have surrounded this tile. Now, this is deep desert, so this doesn't count. You can't capture that. So since I've surrounded this, once I take this, it will turn this tile into a sanctuary, and you will see that. And then, since this is in the middle, every single one of these neighboring tiles, they will get that additional multiplier that I talked about. So it will be just a nice economic upgrade, and then enemy factions won't be able to take Heron anymore, and there's some other bonuses you can get as well from it, but that's the gist of how you get a sanctuary. Now here I'm going to surround this, right? That'll make it a sanctuary. You could also be like, if you're up against the edge of the map, like here or something, and if I got like, say, this tile, and this tile, it would turn this into a sanctuary, which would buff these ones up. So that's kind of the two ways. You can either corner them on the edge of the map, or you can surround them like I did here. Again, deep desert doesn't count because you can't capture that. Okay, so you can now see what I was talking about with this sanctuary. You see now that if you look at Heron, it has this little icon here on the right side, which indicates that it's a sanctuary. And if you hover over it, cannot be attacked by other factions, gains +1 authority, villages in the region and its neighbors gain additional traits. And now if we look at Fanna, and now you see these ×2 multipliers on all of these traits, and this is going to be a really nice sanctuary because it's going to buff everything around it. So each one of these is going to get that multiplier. So that's kind of how the sanctuary system works, and of course you can get more sanctuaries, right, if you want to, but that's how you're going to do it. Another unique thing they have is here. It's called the Garden Resort. Now, this can only be done once, but so I could do it here. It does cost 500 Solari, that's your gold, and it's has some water upkeep. But if you get this, it's going to give +2 knowledge per adjacent sanctuary. So say if I had multiple of those, I'll be getting, in addition to authority, some additional knowledge. The influence production per masterpiece in this region and its neighbors, and we'll talk about that in a second. It can't be abandoned, and attacking this village costs the opponent 100 lands are outstanding and authority. So it's going to cost them like their lands are outstanding. It's going to hurt them for their voting. It's going to, it's just going to be a pain in the butt for the opponent. So maybe like a forward base, it's going to be a hard spot for them to attack because it's going to cost them a lot. So I kind of like to use it towards the front, like maybe even a tile like this here where I'm going to be neighboring some other tiles. And it's going to be buffed by nearby monuments, right, is what it mentioned there, or masterpieces rather. And now that's another unique thing for the Ecaz. So you can come into one of your towns, and you'll see that there's masterpieces under each of the 3 categories. And if you look at the masterpieces, they only cost 40 plascrete. And I've got some upgrades, which we'll talk about in a second, but it counts as 2 buildings for a village's trait, It cannot be destroyed. It is not destroyed when you liberate the town. And destroying masterpieces inflicts the loss of 10 authority and 10 land trade standing. So if I have 3 masterpieces here, and an opponent takes this, they're gonna have to kill these to develop it up, and it's gonna cost them land trade standing and gonna cost them authority. And not to mention, each one of these masterpieces I build, they have no upkeep costs, and it's gonna be giving me some buffs because look at this, I get additional influence per masterpiece in this region and its neighbors. So you can use the masterpiece basically to try to work on some of these different traits using some of these different things. I'm actually about to lose my sanctuary because I have lost this town. But you get the idea. You got the sanctuary, you've got the garden resort, and you can build these monuments. Now, this pairs really nicely with one of the counselors I'm going to show you. So there's 4 counselors to choose from. Today I want to show you this natural artwork one for the Ecaz. Abandoning a village refunds 100% of the authority capture cost, and every masterpiece in a neutral village gives plus 3% authority production to House Ecaz, and masterpieces are built 100% faster. So this is really, a little more advanced of a counselor, but it's going to work well if you're trying to stack up these masterpieces. Because take a look at this. I'm currently right now getting 3% authority production, and I've got ×3. And the reason why is at the beginning of the game, I took this village right here, and I built 3 masterpieces. You can see them right there, right? Now, if an opponent took this again, if they kill those and want to develop, it's going to cost them. But because of this counselor, I'm currently getting, if you look at my authority, look at that, from the sanctuary, I'm getting additional... from a natural artwork, you see the 0.7. I'm getting it for building these masterpieces. So what you can do is say there's a bunch of land maybe between you that maybe you can't really afford or don't really want to try to hold. You could take it, build some monuments, and then abandon it. You're going to get all your resources back. And then you're going to, of course, get a little trickle of authority for that. And then if they attack it, they've got to kill the monuments. It's going to cost them. And it's just like a very different mechanic you can play around with House Ecaz. So I think that just about covers what you need to know as far as these sanctuaries and the garden resort and the monuments are concerned. Now, do realize on some of these, they might have something like +3 Solari per economic building, right? You can see there. So if I build this masterpiece here, it counts as an economy building, counts as 2 times, as 2 buildings for the village traits. So this is going to give me just some extra Solari, and it has no upkeep. So you can really use it to maximize. You want to look at those traits, of course. Okay, now that we've talked about basically those unique mechanics, let's see if did we cover everything else here. We can see the 5K hegemony is when you get that garden resort we talked about. You can also upgrade a single unit and name it a champion, which basically just makes it highest veterancy. So I can grab this unit, pay 1,000 Solari, and now it's a champion. It's got veterancy. And boom, it's going to actually gain hegemony as it kills units out on the field, which is kind of cool. And then for this other counselor I got, for each sanctuary on the map gain, you get 10 Solari production and then minus 20% masterpiece construction costs. So some things to play around with there. Now let's talk about the developments here at the foliage. So once you reach your first hegemony level, it unlocks the ability to build improvements at your main base, the foliage. It's called something else for each faction. But essentially, you can build on these slots. And you see you have economic improvements, military improvements, and statecraft improvements. Now, the way that these bonuses here on the right are going to work is essentially if I build, say, an economic improvement here, it's going to unlock this tier 1 right here. Okay, so that reduces the cost of economy developments by 20%. Okay, so maybe I want to get this development here. It's going to make these other ones cheaper. Then maybe I'm going to put 3 economy developments here. So I'll get the tier 1, which will make them cheaper, and then I'll unlock 3 eventually once I finish that out. And I'll give 10% Solari production. Or perhaps I build them in this 2 slot, put 2 economies here. It'll unlock 30 Solari production. That's kind of how these stack here on the right side. But let's get in the nitty gritty of what options you actually have to choose from. And then of course you can mix and match how you want to build them, of course, as you see fit. Okay, so the very first one we're going to look at, we're going to do economy, administrative hall. That's going to be a +3 Solari production in villages, and then plus 30% authority production. You've got the Chome branch, which is going to be for your spice exchange rates. You've got the Mason Guild, which is going to be additional plastic production and additional Solari in fully built up villages. That means full buildings. And then you've got something for boosting your harvesters. So that's going to be your economy improvements. And then in the military, you've got recruitment center, you've got the barracks, you've got military academy, pretty much everything that you would typically expect for your military development. Nothing really too unique here. And then over here for your statecraft, you got knowledge hegemony. This one's interesting. You get land start standing after each council, and then having at least one treaty is going to give you a production bonus. Down here, Museum of Unbound Arts. Now, this is definitely unique. You can build a second copy of every masterpiece in every village. So you could build even more masterpieces if you get this. So you can really start to stack those up, especially, you've got the garden, maybe you've got the sanctuaries. Each allied village with at least 3 masterpieces gains 1 instance of the village's trait. So even more stacking. So you can really see how we're going. You want to stack up these masterpieces, the sanctuaries, etc. And the intelligence agency. So those are going to be all of your developments you can choose from. I typically like to, if I'm going to go economy heavy early on, I'll get, put 1 in the economy slot, and then maybe I'll go for the 2 economies or 3 economies or something. A lot of times I'll tech that way. But those are going to be your developments. Let's take a look at the tech tree, and it's pretty expansive. And I'll be honest with you, I'm still learning it very much with you. But we'll go through it together. So in general, you've got your economic developments up here. You've got your military developments here. You've got your kind of expansion here, a lot of your authority here. And then you're going to have your espionage, your spycraft down here. Okay, so let's start in the top. I typically have been still starting with composite materials first, which gives you plus 10 plascrete production. And then a lot of times I'll go right down this tree. So this gives you just additional authority. There's a lot of authority discounts. But let's look at through the developments. So you've got composite materials. This is going to be your route if you want to get additional harvesters for your spice, which is really good for your economy and unlock some different buildings. So you see you can add additional harvester crew for your spice. So this is a really good eco route to go. If you look down, and then you got Chome support down here if you're going the Chome share route. And then if you go down the right side of the tree, you have gain 100 Solari upon building a masterpiece. So if you're going this route of building a bunch of masterpieces, it's going to give you some more Solari. It's going to be cheaper to add building slots, etc. And then you've got this one, cultural tourism. Each sanctuary provides plus 10 Solari and plus 5 water. So that's going to be another incentive to get sanctuaries. And then we got filtration systems. This unlocks it so you're able to build wind traps in addition to your dew collectors. So another way to get water. And it gives you 0.2 spice production per positive water. So that's pretty cool. You get spice for your water. And then Riches of Arrakis is going to be essentially for the special regions. It's going to give you some additional Solari. So those are your economic developments. Let's take a look at your military tree. So if we look over here, we've got the survival techniques, which is going to unlock the armory. And that's going to unlock the military base village. And the armory is basically here so you can change the stats of some of your units. You can add some different, you can customize them a little bit. So when you're training units, you want to get this armory after you get survival training. Army logistics is going to give them additional armor, unlocks the barracks. And then we've got a number of upgrades here. Unlocks the war banner unit. Additional power. It's going to be unlocking the regeneration of health. I'm not going to read through every one of these, but basically this is just going to be upgrades to your military units, maybe unlocking other military units, and then unlocking military buildings that you can create. And then this one will give you some authority if no other faction uses more command points. But those are military upgrades. Looking down here at our kind of expansion lay of the land, we've got, of course, these discounts to your authority for expanding. We've got some unique ones here. Other factions lose 5 influence when killing a militia. So we already talked about building those monuments. So if they kill the monuments, they lose influence, right? Or rather Landsrad. This will make it so for each militia to die, they're going to lose militia influence, and they won't be able to win votes. And you get additional militia slots. So kind of a defensive one here. Pretty good, actually. Then you get Prideful Crown. Villages at a distance of 2 regions from the Garden Resort. So we made the Garden Resort, right? 2 regions away. They will be 40% authority cost cheaper to annex, so it'll be cheaper to get the ones 2 tiles away. They have additional military power and militia health and power. So these are 2 really good upgrades. Honestly, pretty good defensive upgrades, you might say, and for expansion. So would recommend getting them. They're pretty nice. Border defense, that's for missile batteries, of course. And then you've got for trading with sieges, and then for resource production in special regions, and then no penalty for annexing a village in a special region. Okay, and then last but not least, we've got the espionage spycraft tab, and we'll focus on the unique ones because these are all available already for the other factions. We look at political art. You gain 30 influence upon building a masterpiece. Any charter currently claimed by House Ecaz cannot be proposed to vote. So they're not going to be kicking you out of charters. You're going to get even more influence. So a lot of ways to stack influence if you couldn't tell with this faction. So I kind of like doing a lot of spycraft with them. I haven't felt that they particularly excel at their military now. New to the faction, of course, but I feel like they're really good at doing stuff where maybe you do some espionage, do some diplomacy, go kind of an eco/espionage route. I kind of like that. Maybe some assassinations or Dune governorship. I actually have won a game with Dune governorship already. When out of intel, influence is used in its stead for mission preparations, assassination, upkeep, and assassin recruitment. So +1 infiltration cells in each faction's territory. So that can be really nice for, of course, going for assassinations, getting this plot. And if you already have a lot of influence because you stacked up your monuments, that's going to be nice, right? And then you got the last but not least, our unique one. Information levels rises and fall 50% faster. Agents on fields at max information level produce 50% of each resources. So you're going to get more resources when you got your agents assigned. You're going to be able to get your levels faster. So those are those levels you get, through here. I'm going to be moving through faster. And that's pretty much all of the developments for the most part here for Ecaz. So some unique, I like these ones. I think some of my favorite. And then of course, like some of these ones built around the masterpiece are really is what stand out to me. And besides that, we talked about the sanctuaries. We talked about the garden. I think the last thing we could cover here would be just taking a look at a few of these units that are available. So you've got the Squire, which is going to be one of your beginning units. The targets suffer -4 armor. So you're going to be stripping away armor of units. I think is where you want to use these. This makes the target suffer additional damage received. And then ranged melee attacks only deal 50% damage. Suffers pin down when engaged in combat. That's going to be a ranged unit, and that's kind of like a grunt. The Fencer I haven't quite figured out yet, but it says 150% attack speed when no ally units are close. So it seems like they're either used to be like a lone rangers or just like as a last resort as you're losing, or maybe as you're retreating. Maybe use it. And you got war banners, which of course is going to be for buffing your nearby units. Is how that is going to work. And then the knight is what I usually use, the backbone of my my ground army, and they get -20% damage received per other Ekazi non-mechanical unit. So for each of these units, they're going to get additional less damage received. And then they can't be executed if there's at least one other Ekazi non-mechanical unit nearby. It's pretty cool. And then lastly, you've got your Siren, which is just going to be your fighter, right, flying unit, and then your Monument, which is like your behemoth flying unit, the giant, capital ship. And it plays songs, the War Anthem or Lullaby. The War Anthem, non-mechanical units in a large area get additional power, so this will buff your army. Or Lullaby, the non-mechanical units in a large area suffers 50% attack speed. So you can either debuff your enemy or buff your own troops. So that's how that's going to work. Okay, guys. So I think that covers just about everything I'd want to as far as our beginner's guide for House Ecaz. Of course, a lot of intricacies, a lot more to go in the depth because this game does have so much depth, but I wanted to start with that. And actually, I just remembered one more thing. You can actually you can become immune to resolutions. Sometimes when you vote, you can choose to be discluded, so you can spend land start standing. So maybe if there's a negative resolution, you don't want to get voted for it, you can actually influence that. So pretty cool. Okay, so I encourage you to check out my gameplay of this faction where I tried them out in multiplayer and was pretty successful on the channel. And for more Dune strategy guides, make sure you subscribe. Leave me a comment. This is my brand new Dune channel. I'm going to be just covering Spice Wars. Of course, I've got my main FitzBro channel where we cover Age of Empires 4 content. We got new content coming for that game. But looking forward to digging a little bit more into Spice Wars. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.